Hello, everyone. Let's discuss question number 2 from May-June 2023, variant 1-3. Now, if we have a look at this question, the question over here reads, explain two reasons why interpretivists use participant observation in sociological research. Explain two reasons why interpretivists. Now, we need to know interpretivism over here. Now, you all should be aware that interpretivism is in total contrast to the positivist approach. The interpretivist approach is in total contrast to the positivist approach, right? So, explain two reasons why interpretivists use participant observation in sociological research, or why is it that they advocate participant observation? Why is it that they advocate participant observation while conducting sociological research? This happens to be an 8-mark question. This is question number 2A, that is of an 8-mark, that is of 8 marks. Question number 2B is of 6 marks. They're both on research methods. Now, to begin with, indicative content, the ability to experience the way of life of the study group. Now, according to interpretivists advocate the usage of qualitative research methods. They believe in collecting data that is qualitative data. Okay. So the ability to experience the way of life of the study group. Now, when you talk about participant observation is when you are, as a researcher, as an observer, when you are participating in the activities of the group that you're conducting a research on, right? So, of course, your involvement in that group would be more. The more involvement you'd have, the more you'd be able to experience the way of life, right? Now, to be able to experience, when you're experiencing the way of life of a particular social group, that would, according to interpretivists, result in higher validity or more of accuracy in terms of your data collection. One. Number two, the ability to observe interactions and understand meanings. Now, what does the word Wursten over here? Weber, Maximilian Karl Emil Weber, also referred to as Max Weber. Weber came up with this idea of Wursten. Now, what is Wursten? Wursten, or in other words, if I put it in a simple manner, when you're putting yourself in someone else's shoe to figure out why they are the way they are, right? Of course, if you are conducting a research through participant observation, when you're participating in the activities, that particular social group that you're conducting a research on does in their activities, when you're participating in the activities of the social group that you're conducting a research on, you actually putting yourself in their shoe to figure out why they're behaving the way they're behaving, right? Now, the ability to observe interaction and understand meanings, right? When you're observing interaction within a particular social group, being a member of that particular social group, engaging in activities that they get engaged in or they get involved into, you'd be able to have a you'd perhaps have a better understanding as to why they're behaving the way they're behaving, right? Number three, the depth of understanding gained will be high. That is, your the data that you'd be gathering would be valid according to interpretivists. Again, like I said a minute earlier, according to the interpretivist approach, your data is more valid when you're conducting a research or when you're collecting data that is detailed, that gives you an in-depth understanding, which of course, according to interpretivists, is possible through participant observation, right? So the fourth point here, the opportunity to build relationships based on trust or rapport may promote data that are more valid. Now, if it is a participant observation, I'm sorry, if it is a participant observation, when as a researcher, as an observer, you are you're participating in the activities that group is participating in, again, you're getting an opportunity to build a relationship with them, right? A relationship that would perhaps be based on trust, right? When they trust you more, they'd be themselves in front of you, and when they're being themselves in front of you, they're not faking it. If they're not faking it, again, the accuracy of your data would get high, which in other words means, according to interpretivists, your research validity increases. Now, taking this ahead, the opportunity to study subcultural and deviant groups. Now, there are many subcultural groups that are not really accepted by the society, or that are not really seen in a very positive light by the society. Now, groups such as these, you could speak about the subcultures from the 1960s, 70s, mods and rockers. You could speak about punks. You could speak about skinheads. Now, these subcultural groups, whom generally, typically, the society or the people around or a layman sees as deviant, once you're a part of the group, once you're living the life they're living, once you're participating in the activities they're involved in, you'd you'd have a better understanding about them, right? This would provide you with an opportunity to study them, and this goes for deviant groups as well, criminal groups as well. Now, the next point, issues not originally thought of may emerge, reducing researchers' imposition. When you are conducting a research through participant observation, there might be many things that you come across which you had not even considered, which you had not even thought of before. So that again is an advantage. Now, a researcher by the end of the day is a human being, and a researcher might be missing on certain things that he might or she might come across which was never expected, right? So this again adds on to whatever the data is that you're collecting. Now, this particular point, issues not originally thought of may emerge, reducing researcher imposition, right? If you're just being there, if you're participating in the activities of that particular social group, you might come across a lot of things, like I said, you had not even thought of, which again keeps you from imposing your own values, imposing your own opinion about that particular social group. Now, this particular point, I'd like you to read through this reference. Now, this is again a strength of participant observation. Participant observation gives researchers the opportunity to observe people in the normal everyday situations and in a variety of contexts. It can provide insights and knowledge which may not be available from other research methods. William White in 1955 undertook a lengthy study of an Italian American gang in Boston based on participant observation. He discovered that, now we're talking about, let me just highlight this for you, an Italian American gang, a gang, right? Based on participant observation. He discovered things that he had previously known nothing about. He discovered things that he had previously known nothing about. In his words, as I sat and listened, I learned the answers to questions that I would not even have had the sense to ask if I had been getting my information solely on an interviewing basis. So, William White is talking about a comparison between him collecting data through an interview versus him collecting data through a participant observation. Now, this point, moving on to the next one, this makes the use of qualitative data. Again, explain two reasons why interpreters use participant observation in sociological research. Now, I'd like to reiterate on this, the points that we're discussing. I understand, I know this is an 8-mark question, which is simply expecting you to know of or to explain two reasons. But do you realize, if you're reading through these 6, 7, 8 points that we have, if you're understanding them, if you're reading through the book and connecting what you see over here in the marking theme with the content of the book, if you tomorrow getting a 26-mark evaluative essay question on participant observation, you could put this very piece of information to use in that answer too. So yeah, so this is not just an 8-marker. This would help you with other questions too. Now, taking this ahead, reward a maximum of 2 reasons. Up to 4 marks are available for each reason. The first mark for making a point, giving a reason. The second mark for explaining that particular point. The third mark for selecting relevant sociological material. The fourth mark for explaining how the material supports the point. Let's put this to use. The point could be ability to experience the way of life of the study group. This is the point. If you have a look, the first point, right? How is it that the researcher has developed on it or used it to explain according to the criteria that the examiner expects you to write in, according to the format that the examiner expects you to write in to be able to score full marks. Now, the point is, or the reason is, the ability to experience the way of life of the study group. Number two, participant observation permits research to take place in a natural environment which interpreters see as vital. William White's study of street corner enabled him to study the behavior of the gangs up close. Now, this is what it was. I'll zoom it again just in case if you want to, just in case if you did not take this seriously before, you might as well pause it here and read through this, okay? Now, going back, the fourth point, example, it is only It is only by using methods that allow respondents to be active participants that researchers will be able to collect valid data, right? It is only by using methods that allow respondents, the respondents, the people that, in this case, the people you can, the people that you're observing, right? It is only by using methods that allow respondents to be active participants that researchers will be able to collect valid data. Now, moving on to the next question. The next question over here reads, explain two strengths of using official statistics in sociological research. Two strengths of using official statistics in the sociological research. The first point, the first indicative point, by collecting data through official statistics. Now, okay, I just take a minute trying to remind you what official statistics are, just in case if someone did not know this or knew this but has forgotten. Anyways, so official statistics are the statistics that are collected by government organization for their own use. Remember, every government, every country collects information from their citizens, from the people in that particular country, right? So official statistics are the statistics that are collected by government organizations for their own use. Statistics such as unemployment rate, employment rate, birth rate, death rate, marriage rate, divorce rate, crime rate, so on and so forth, right? So the statistics that are collected by government organizations for their own use, if these statistics are later on used by sociologists in the sociological research, one, they would be an example of a secondary research. Why is it that we're referring to them as a secondary research? We're referring to them as a secondary research method because they're not, this piece of information or this data or these statistics, they're not collected by the sociologists. They're being collected by different organizations that are working for the government, right? Now, yeah, different organizations that are working for the government, right? So if the government is collecting data for their own use, if a sociologist simply picks up data from there and puts that data to his or her own use, we would refer to that as an example of a secondary research method, and that would be referred to as official statistics. Now, continuing with this, the first strength of official statistics, or the first strength of using official statistics in a sociological research, number one, you're able to conduct, they conducted on a large scale surveys lead to be representative, or the data that you've collected is generalizable to the wider population. Of course, when you're talking about a country collecting data, it is usually nationwide data. If it's nationwide data, it is data being collected on a large scale. If it is data being collected on a large scale, the the people that you're collecting data from are representative of the wider sample, right? The more representative your sample is, the more chances there are that the research findings would be generalizable to the wider population. Let me remind you, we typically use the word representativeness with the sample, right? The people that you're collecting data from, right? And generalizability, we use the word generalization when you're referring to the findings or the results of a research. One. Number two, this the product, they're usually a product of a reliable method that is objective and value free. Now, usually official statistics are collected through a mechanism, are collected in a manner that of course does not involve the sociologist's values. This, it would not involve the sociologist's values, because a sociologist is not collecting that data. It's the government that's collecting data, which is assumed to be, or which is considered to be, typically objective. Objective is without bias, right? And is value free. Now, the third point, official statistics for developed parts of the world, at least, they're conducted on a regular basis. When official statistics are conducted on a regular basis, for instance, the census, the data that different census records, if you talk about census records, they are collected by developed parts of the world, at least on a very regular basis. If you're collecting data on a regular basis, you'd be able to keep a track on different aspects, such as let's just say, you'd be able to identify different trends over time. For instance, a death rate in a particular country in 2010 compared to death rate in a particular country in 2015, death rate in a particular country in 2020, 2025, so on and so forth. So that would help you make comparisons. Uh, that would help you identify patterns. Now, taking this ahead, collected regionally or nationally, so can be used to compare and identify patterns across different places. Now, of course, you could talk about data being a comparison of data. If you talk about Durkheim's study on suicide, right? So suicide rate being collected from different parts of the world to be able to make comparisons. The next point, it can be used to test a hypothesis, like Durkheim. He wanted to test the factors that led to suicide. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I'm trying to stick to this question. There are many practical reasons why official statistics are used by sociologists as well, such as it may be the only source available. For instance, death rate, for instance, birth rate. Who else do you think, or what other organization do you think in a particular country would have access to that data? No one would. It's just the government. Now, moving on, they are typically, usually you see them being readily available. In many cases, they're just a simple click away. They are relatively cheap. Of course, I mean, if you're collecting data from a particular, if you're picking up data from a particular organization where you might have to say, let's just say, pay $100, right? $100 might not appear to be, or might not, you might not find it super cheap or super cost effective, but it might not be cheap, but yes, it would be super cost effective if you're talking about conducting that research yourself. The amount of data that you have received in, let's just say, $100, do you even think you'd be able to collect a portion or a fraction of that data in that much of money? Of course not. So it works that way. Moving, this is a 6 mark question. How is it that the CI grades you? The CI would grade you like this. You get the first mark for identifying the strength of an official statistic, the second mark for explaining why this method has this particular strength, the third mark for explaining why it is a strength. An example again, they conducted on a large scale. Official statistics are produced by governments who have the resources to conduct surveys on a large scale, which makes them likely to be representative of the wider population, and the findings are generalizable. Now, I hope this has helped. Again, this 6 marker that you see over here, the points that we just read about official statistics, they could help you write a decent portion of your answer if you end up getting a 26-mark evaluative essay question on official statistics too. Now, I hope this has helped. Thank you.